Hey there, Internet, and welcome once again to Underground Lucha Things, the Lucha Underground podcast, where we are at the penultimate episode of this season. Kind of. I'll explain kind of why at the end. But for right now, we are at the penultimate episode of the season of the show that aired. Because this is PenUltimaLucha. And you know what? Joining me, laughing, but you can't hear her because she's muted. Joining me is the one, the only, Angie FN of Midcard Mana. Angie, how you doing?
I am good. Thank you for having me on this PenUltimaLucha adventure.
Yeah, PenUltimaLucha. Like I said, this is season 1, episode 37, PenUltimaLucha, which takes place July 22nd, 2015. I thought the name was super clever. I know you're not an English teacher or a math teacher, but I thought you would still appreciate the pun there.
I used to teach math, so it's fine. I got it. I liked it.
Yeah. But we have the show opening up with Big Rick in Cuerdo's office, and he wants Big Rick to come out of obscurity by giving him one of the ancient Aztec medallions. And he asks Rick, what's more important, money or power? And Big Rick has a great response because he says, why choose when you can have both? Not leaving until Dario gives him a fat stack of cash to go along with that medallion. And there's another wonderful line that as he leaves, he says, I'm glad we finally see eye to eye. And and yes, I love Big Rick. I'm gonna try to see if I can get an interview with him. I'm not gonna promise anything, but I do know him, so I'm gonna try to get an interview with him for this show because he's one of the top points of season 1, and it's nice to see after him kind of falling to obscurity this past few weeks that these past few months that hey, he's getting a shot to once again be the man we know he can be. How'd you like this opening, Angie?
Oh yeah, the sight and the eye puns, intentional and unintentional, that ran through the whole thing. It tickled me. I'm not gonna lie. I usually try to deny that I like puns, but I enjoyed this. This was a good back and forth, I felt, between Big Rick and Dario Cueto. Dario, of course, opening with sort of being like, I had big plans for you, but you went off with Davari, and now I don't know. You lost. Was it you were blinded by money? I was going to say you lost sight of what you were fighting for, but yeah, you were blinded by Davari's money. And yeah, that whole getting Big Rick back on track, I like, because I don't know. I haven't been, I should say, the biggest fan of him being Davari's muscle. Big Rick is much more interesting to me than Davari. Sorry, Davari, but Big Rick as a character and as a competitor in the temple has been much more compelling to me than he has so far. So I am much more invested in Big Rick getting a push from Dario than him coasting on Davari's money.
And we get the first match of the show. Like I said, all the medallions are gone now, so I guess these matches are for giggles. I have no idea. But we get Johnny Mundo versus Texano. And by the way, I've got to say that Texano has a gorgeous drop kick. And it's nice to see that Texano has athleticism to go along with his strength. Mundo gets a bit more showy here, especially when they're on the outside. But as Texano gets himself into a dominant position in this match, Cisco and Cortez come out and hit Texano with a kendo stick, causing a disqualification. And as Johnny joins them in stomping Texano, Alberto El Patron comes out to the ring and runs off Johnny Mundo while beating down the crew. Texano starts whipping the crew with his bull rope and faces off with Alberto El Patron, but Alberto leaves without incident. So we've got the enemy of my enemy sort of thing going on here. We've got
exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Felt very tense for a moment because, of course, we know the history of Alberto El Patron and Texano, but we also know the history now, at least as far as Lucha Underground Temple, of Alberto El Patron and Johnny Mundo. So definitely very much the enemy, my enemy is my friend. It wasn't very clear that it was, you know, they now buried the hatchet. Who knows if they have? Who knows if they haven't? Who knows if maybe one hatred just outweighs the other? But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting moment. Having the two of them take a beat and then have El Patron leave the ring to Texano.
That was a very interesting beat, and we go to Hernandez and Cuerto's office, and and I love this because Dario Cuerto offers a very conspicuously positioned Miller Lite to Hernandez and says he's adding an extra week to Ultima Lucha, and that Hernandez and Drago will be featured heavily in the first week. And it turns out that what he's going to do is let the Believers be lumberjacks in the match, armed with leather belts. He calls it the Believers Backlash. I think this is kind of a cool concept. I mean, I will look at the crowd and see if I can see who's a worker and who's not for that match, because I'm like, I'm like, would they actually let the Believers be because this is a TV show before a wrestling show, so I don't know. There could be extras, there could be talent, or they could. If I see Sean Scoville with a belt, I will know that this was actually fans. I will see. Like I said, I haven't touched Ultima Lucha. I haven't touched any of the Ultima Lucha episodes yet. I'm not watching that until after we record this. But I am very, very curious. And what were your feelings about this overall?
Okay, this is gonna sound awful. And you know, I don't have a whole lot of experience training as a wrestler. I have stage combat experience from being in theater, but the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, let the fans in. Now, as I know like a little bit more now than I did then when I first watched it, I'm just like, I would stage combat for that. Like, I know I'm not a wrestler, but like, just tell me you want to just like have me crack it next to him, and I'll work the spot. Like, I just like, to me, that concept of getting to even be a little bit part of that as a fan, who knows if it's actually fans or a combination of both yet, right? But yeah, that to me, that would be like the coolest shit ever, because that's like the ultimate level of inclusivity as a fan. And to me, whenever somebody gets thrown out into the crowd, like Logan Stunt did in GCW, or a couple of the shows where they just go straight out, they bust the barricades and they just walk out into the crowd and just start beating crap out of each other. That's like the most exciting stuff. And that's when you really feel like part of it and you feel like appreciated as a fan. So that would be dope.
As a wrestler, I'm always of two minds with that, because like I actually hate like if I'm in the crowd and someone gets thrown into my seating section, or they say to move because they're going to throw it in my seating section, it's like, nah, I like this seat. And especially in more packed shows, it's like I don't want you to destroy my chair. I like having my chair. What'd my chair do to you? You guys should be able to do it in there. Or the other thing with that is I hate being on like the side of the ring where action isn't happening. So, and I've had that happen more than once, where it's like, great, everything's happening over there, and I have no idea I have no idea what's going on. So appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for going outside of my line of sight with this.
I like to think of it as a trade, not to get too far off topic, but I mean, for most wrestling shows that I've gone to, if they do a spot on one side, they usually end up doing another spot, maybe in a different match on the other side, just to, you know, kind of even it out. I've never been at a show, and it's not like I've been to a ton of shows, but I've never been at a show where they only focus it, unless it's, you know, a television taping, where they only focus it really on one side and kind of leave out the other sides. So yeah, I feel you though. My mom's very similar. Where when we went to the G1, she was like, I don't want to sit in the front. What if someone sweats on me or spits on me? Or what if they hit the barricade and it hits me? So I got a front row ticket by myself, and my parents got a ticket 5 or 6 rows back because they did not want to be anywhere near the front or get risk something happening to their seat. So I get it. I do.
Yeah.
But I love being part of the action.
Yeah, next up though we have the Mack versus Cage, and again these are our brawly boys bumping beef. Hoss fight indeed. And the match starts fast, but ends faster when the Mack hits a sunset flip out of nowhere for the pin and win, and an irate Cage just follows him outside of the ring, and the two continue to brawl on the outside. Security and officials trying to split it up. They're getting thrown everywhere, and they fight up the temple steps. The crowd is bloodthirsty, asking the officials just to let them fight. Dario Cueto comes out and says that he will let them fight in a ring surrounded with everything he can find in his temple. And he also announces to the crowd now that PenUltimaLucha will be next week. It was supposed to be in 2 weeks, but you know what? It'll be next week, and it'll take place over 2 weeks. It'll take place in 2 rings. And it will start with a most violent match you can think of. The Mack versus Brian Cage in a Falls Count Anywhere match. So how did this make you feel?
At first I was sort of like, wow, that was over really fast. But then having them continue to brawl, having the announcement of the match, I felt made the shortness of the actual match make a lot more sense. You know, I love the Mack. I like Brian Cage. These are 2 super talented guys. And they're gonna bring it in this horrifying Falls Count Anywhere match where they can use anything and everything to get the one up on one another. These are 2 guys that are, not weak men. I shouldn't say weak because no wrestler is weak, but they're definitely big beefy dudes. So big beefy dudes throwing big beefy things at their big beefy others. Good shit, man. Already excited for it.
And Dario is out there talking about one thing. He comes back and he explains a little more, and he's in there with this velvet draped thing, and Dario states that the 7 medallions, he's finally telling us what these medallions are for. The 7 medallions make up the gift of the gods, and the luchador that holds this belt, and he reveals this belt with like 7 interesting circles, 7 plates and 7 circles. He says whoever holds this belt is guaranteed to get a championship match whenever they want. He vaguely calls out Money in the Bank, saying that he's like he likes to promote his fight, so you can't just cash it. He's not just going to have this cash it match right there, right now. No, you have to call your shot, and you have to do it carefully because if you take too long, you'll have to defend it, and anybody can walk away with the belt after you defend it. So, but once it's cashed in, the medallions get redistributed. So he calls out the superstars who own a medallion to come to the ring. Only 6 people come out, not 7. And I'll get to why in a second. But there is a very cool visual as the medallions are one by one being put into the belt. The belt just sucks in the medallions. Obviously, it's like a magnet, but they hold up the medallion and the belt sucks in the medallion.
Mystical powers.
Yes, mystical powers of that Aztec gold. And again, great visual. Everyone leaves the ring and there's one spot left in there. And he says that this medallion was Phoenix's, but he got destroyed by Mills, so it will be up for grabs tonight in a battle royal. And just to make the battle royal interesting, the final 2 you can only win by pin or submission. Phoenix appears and says it's too late. He already announced the match, but you know what? He'll allow him into the match. So that's what we have next. The final medallion battle royal. What was this? What was this reveal like? Because again, I think I had vaguely heard about this, but now that I know kind of how it works, gets me very excited.
So the first time when I was watching it, I didn't quite understand. It like took me a couple of episodes after this to really understand what it meant. But now watching back on it, and having the understanding now immediately that I didn't have then. It was a really cool ceremony, and I love this concept. Honestly, it makes it. I mean, it's a little. I guess it depends on what your opinion is. To me, I think it makes it easier to figure out, who gets the chance to fight for the Gift of the Gods championship, similar to a Money in the Bank. The Money in the Bank has qualifying matches, sort of, but you never really know how these matches kind of get, I don't know, determined. And maybe it's because the Lucha Underground roster is a little bit smaller. It makes a little bit more sense to know why these are the people that are fighting for each of these opportunities. But also, I just think it's a really cool belt. That would be a replica belt I would want, and then having the removable medallions would be super cool. I don't know. I really liked the aesthetic of the whole thing from the first time I watched it. I still like it now. And yeah, I just think it's a super cool concept, because then at least you have something tangible, right? Like maybe you didn't win the actual Gifted Gods, but you won the medallion of this specific tribe.
Yeah, this reminds me very much. If I've mentioned it before on this show, but again, there was this old show called WMAC Masters, and one of the things they had was they had medallions that they had to put on other belt. They could earn other people's medallions in order to be able to try to go for the grand championship. It was a very cool concept. At some point, maybe do a podcast on that show, because that show was kind of awesome. I think you've probably never seen that. I
have not ever seen it, no.
Yeah, so
maybe, I've only heard the myth and lore.
Maybe at some point I'll have you watch the show, and I'll go with you through this and talk about.
We'll switch.
Yeah, we'll switch, and it will be about WMAC Masters, because that's what this reminds me of. Very cool. But let's get back to the final medallion battle royal here. There's a lot of enhancement luchadors in this match, but Famous B gets a pop with a pedigree, and the announcer says, "It works every Monday night. Will it work tonight in the temple?" So, shout out to Raw there. And he also does the Hogan leg drop. Was Hogan racist yet? I don't know. This was 2015. I'm not sure if this...
That runs deep. They were born with that.
I just mean though.
I shouldn't say they're born, but I mean you're taught that at a young age.
Did we know Hogan was racist yet? Because the black performer's doing the leg drop and the ear call here, but
Booker T knew. Booker T knew.
But the final four in this are Delavar Davari, Famous B, Marty the Moth, and Phoenix. So my automatic thought is Marty and Phoenix, because they're the only really two featured guys here. It will be the final two. Famous B tries to survive, but Marty and Davari team up on him. They continue their beatdown on Phoenix, but Phoenix is able to throw Davari over, and this becomes a one-on-one match between Marty the Moth and Phoenix. Marty shows off his strength, but declines to dive so that he can taunt a little more. Phoenix doesn't seem to have lost a step since being killed by Mill, and Phoenix goes for a tilt-a-whirl, but Marty attempts to stop it. And though Phoenix turns it into sort of like a stuttering pin maneuver. Like, it looked not quite as crystal clean as things usually do, but Phoenix wins, gets the medallion, and has the final slot in the Gift of the Gods championship. And he goes up the stairs, kind of like Rocky, but the crowd's just cheering for him, and he places that final medallion in as Dario Cueto looks on. How did you like the way this all turned out?
I thought it was cool. I liked the moments they gave to Famous B. He may be counted among, the enhancement talent or the jobbers in Lucha Underground, but to kind of give him that moment, I thought was really cool. It was a show of respect to let him have a pretty decent looking run in that match and have him score a couple of eliminations. I think it's a nice show of appreciation, similar to how in community theater, maybe there's somebody who's not the best in a show, but they always show up and they always, try their best. So you give them a decent role to show your appreciation and show that you trust them to be able to perform. I thought that's kind of how this felt like in this match, even though we all knew Famous B wasn't going to be the last one to win it, medallion. He had a good showing, and I liked that nod of appreciation to him. That being said, of course, you know how much I love Marty. Marty the Moth is one of, from the get-go, when I first watched him in Lucha Underground, from that first appearance all the way to later seasons, I've always loved Marty the Moth. And having him be one of the final two was very satisfying. Of course, it was no surprise to me that Phoenix is going to win anyway, because, that's kind of Phoenix's story in this, where, he gets knocked down a couple pegs and he rises again to the top like a phoenix. So it was a cool match. It definitely, I think, solidified Phoenix's rags to riches sort of I was going to say underground because I'm thinking of Sami Zayn, but the underdog sort of vibe of him, and how he is very never say die, never quits, fights until his last breath, until he wins. So yeah, that match looked great. I thought it was cool to see kind of some of the people that we haven't seen in sort of a while, Vinny Massaro, Argenis, Mascarita Sagrada, even. I thought it was cool. Yeah, this overall good match. I love battle royals. Those are my favorite kinds of matches. So, and whenever I get to see one, I'm always tickled.
Yeah, and like you said, there were some very interesting faces in there that I didn't mention. I was kind of surprised I didn't see Pimpinella. Maybe Pimpinella was in there, but they might have been in there so short. I don't know, but they do say that Prince Puma is finally going to speak. That we are finally going to hear from him since he doesn't have Conan. But as he gets his microphone, Mil Muertes and Katrina show up on the steps. And by the way, I love how Prince Puma is in a hoodie, tank top, just street clothes, while Mil is in a pinstripe suit. And Puma drops the belt and lays it down across the line like a challenge. But as Mil starts stepping down, the Disciples of Death attack, and Prince Puma is able to fend off the Disciples of Death and leave Mil and Katrina stunned. Puma stands triumphant in the corner, and as Mil rushes into the ring, the two have a very high energy face-off, with Puma giving Mil a black mass and staring down Katrina as he delivers a 630, and he does his superhero landing, holding his title as we go off the air. It was a very cool visual to end with. Just this ending, the show overall. Give me your thoughts and feelings, Angie.
Well, the ending, of course, is very Prince Puma, aka very Ricochet. Having the hero, the superhero, kind of come out, and even though he's smaller, able to kind of get the one up. As a wrestling fan now, that doesn't bode as well to me than it did before. But it was still a cool moment. Mil Muertes, who I also love, even though he's, of course, the bad guy, but I love the bad guys. Mil Muertes looking fly as hell in that suit. I also would love a suit like that. I would rock it every opportunity that I would have, because that looked so good. The episode as a whole, of course, the penultimate episode before Ultima Lucha. I think did a really good job in getting everyone hyped for Ultima Lucha, as well as making everything very clear going into Ultima Lucha. You know who the good guys and the bad guys are. You know who's fighting who. You know why things are happening as you go in. So I felt like it was really effective. And even if maybe you just randomly tuned in to Lucha Underground, didn't watch it from the beginning, just randomly tuned in, you kind of know what's going to be happening next, and you kind of know why. You might not know the deeper storylines, but you know that, these two guys are gonna Cage and the Mack are gonna fight because they had a really quick match over here, so they're gonna fight real hard at Ultima Lucha. You know that these 7 people who each have a medallion are gonna fight for the gift of the gods. You know that Prince Puma and Mil Martes are going to fight for the title. You know that Mil Martes, of course, is the bad guy with the nice suit. And, Prince Puma is the relatable underdog who is dressed in street clothes that you're supposed to root for. So to me, it definitely, I thought it was very effective in setting up everyone's expectations going in to Ultima Lucha Nights 1 and 2.
Yeah, and you know what? That's kind of funny because despite it being called PenUltimaLucha, we talked about it being a penultimate episode. I did not look at it as a go-home show, which it really is. And you're right. As a go-home show, it functioned expertly. I know what's going on next week. It gave me the full rundown kind of everything that we will see going into the Ultima Lucha event. So, yeah, like I said.
The season finale, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a great point you brought up there. And again, the Gift of the Gods Championship, I think it's super creative. Haven't seen anything like that since WMAC Masters. Very cool, and I look forward to it. So, here's what we're going to do. Yeah, despite how well this functioned as a go-home, Angie and I are going to take some time to talk about the feuds going into Ultima Lucha on the next episode. So the next episode isn't Ultima Lucha. It is an Ultima Lucha preview. And then we're going to do...
Yeah, it's our go-home show.
Yeah, it's our go-home show. And then we will have Ultima Lucha as one large episode instead of 2 separate ones. And that episode will be coming out on Wednesday. That's right. After this, we will go back to 2 episodes a week. We've had the break between election, between working in schools, between just the world ending around us. We're gonna move along and keep the show running. But yeah, we needed that gap. So I apologize for how long it's taken. But yes, Underground Lucha Things will be far more frequent. Between now and the season 2 premiere, the pins are available for $5 on the Etsy shop. Just look up Underground Lucha Things, and I'll have a link in the comment section. I'll have a link in the description below. Yeah, go get an Underground Lucha Things pin as we head into season 2. But you know what, Angie? Let everybody know where they can find you.
All right, I am part of 2 shows based out of the the state of Hawaii, I guess I should say. The first one is Midcard Mana. We are based on the island of Hawaii, and we talk a little bit more about the current events. We hopefully are going to be able to get a video up about our G1 so far. It's more serious stuff and unboxing videos. I'm also part of Valley Isle Collective's Ringside. We talk a little bit more about the goofier side of wrestling, why GOD is the best tag team, who is our favorite wrestler out of the Bullet Club, stuff like that. And you can find me on most social media as Fumiko Mega.
And you can find me here, youtube.com/FriscoFlame. You could find this podcast by looking for Underground Lucha Things in your favorite podcast app. You could find merch by searching Underground Lucha Things or search Frisco Flame. I have pins, I have shirts. Go to friscoflame.com. There's even a link to the Etsy from that shop. Or, you can just find me on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff as Frisco Flame. But you know what, people? For Angie, for myself, peace out, party people. We'll see you next time with more Underground Lucha Things.
Bang, bang.